If your whole business plan is to raise money, get a new plan.
100%. Hey everybody, I'm T, this is Bob. Welcome to another episode of the illustrious, celebrated, critically acclaimed No Followers podcast.
At least by our mothers.
Yeah, that's right. My mom says I'm special. I'm her special boy. No, today we're going to get into talking about, as a startup or even as an early stage company, kind of making it doesn't necessarily have to be a decision, but weighing the benefits, the pros and cons of team building versus fundraising. Should you be focusing on one versus the other as you work to get your product to market or your idea to prototype?
If your whole business plan is to raise money, get a new plan.
100%.
So I'm not a fan of raising money off the bat. I make all of our clients get some kind of paid pilot, paid first client, something that creates the dynamic of a customer, because until you know what a paid customer is going to deal with whatever you're doing as a business, you have no idea what you're doing. So
what do you, I agree with you, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for anyone that's in this position. Because a couple of years ago, I was in the position that I was like, all right, we've taken our tech to this level. We have proof of concept. Time to fundraise.
And who talked you out of that?
Well, you did. It's not that you talked me out of it. You guided me in asking the right questions. You definitely guided me in asking the right questions, which were the right questions to ask. So what do you say to someone that goes like, well, you're wrong because that's why angel investing exists? Again, that's not what I think. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Listen, you can have your opinion. Here's a few reasons if you're going to raise money and you don't have any customers. You have no market intelligence to share with an investor. You're literally begging. So the paradigm of negotiation is completely against you. You are begging because you have nothing. So people tell me I'm wrong all the time, by the way, and I'm really not that offended by it. But think about it from the business point of view. If you're supposed to be the expert and you're asking somebody to give you money to do what you do, and you have nothing except what you think's going to happen or some research, you have no market relevancy. What are you going to do? Who's going to give you money anyway? And that goes back to the team thing. People don't invest usually in a business. They invest in people, and they look for a team. Because a long time ago, I was told by one of my earliest investors on our film studio, you could die. Who's going to continue the operations? And, that started the whole team building thing we've been doing for 30 years now, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but, there is a belief. We saw it a couple of weeks ago at that event where people were like, all right, I have an idea. I need $100,000 to get to the first level. And people go, well, how could I get market validation if I can't build the thing to test it? It's a real chicken and an egg. And I don't think it is the chicken and the egg. I think it is about you as an entrepreneur and as a founder being as scrappy and resourceful as possible to look at everything and say, how do I prove this so that if I do have to fundraise, not everybody has to, but if you do have to fundraise, how do you have the market validation to have a leg to stand on in that negotiation? And I think that as a early stage company or as a founder, your time is better spent building a team than trying to fundraise, right? If
all you're doing is fundraising, and we meet clients every day here at the incubator, they're just going round to round to round. They have no revenue. They have no paid clients. God bless them. I guess they get enough suckers to line up and give them money, but that's not a business. And I'm just going to define one thing. A startup is not a business. A startup is an idea looking for a business. So if you can't find that first client, you don't have a business yet anyway. So what are you raising money for? Because you can't validate projections. You can't validate allocation of resources. everything's a guess then. And your job as the CEO or the founder is to put some validity and tangibility around what you're saying, even if you can't completely prove it in the marketplace yet. So I'm not a fan of raising money, and we never raise money until we get a pilot or some kind of one customer, because that makes me an expert. I kind of know what we did wrong. I kind of know where we have to improve. I know what the client's expecting. And then you can build the whole company around that earliest information.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about like weighing it versus building a team, and you could make the argument of like those two aren't mutually exclusive. All right, that's fine. But I guess my point is to say, if you're going to fundraise, especially early on, you're going to be giving up equity, most likely. There are other vehicles. You may be able to do it with other models. If you issue convertible debt, you are probably not going to be able to pay it back, and that will turn into equity. You may sign a SAFE agreement. You may go after a royalty model. There are other options, but you're probably going to be giving something up. And my 2 cents is you're better off finding a good partner structure where you have a team member that brings something to the table that you don't, that gets you on your path to validation, that is more value than just raising money. Because especially the earlier you are, you're going to burn through that money. And if you haven't hit your benchmark of validation or prototype or proof of concept, you're going to be further back and you're going to have unhappy investors.
Well, we just went through some applications at the incubator, and for some of the proof of concepts that raised money, they listed what they spent their money on. And one was they hired somebody to go raise more money. I mean, that's the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen. Yeah. If you raise money to build a company, build the company. I know you might run out of money, but you better get to market. So maybe that puts the fire under you. And that's your first milestone. I don't know who gives money without milestones. And if you're raising money, it's always in tranches. If you're asking for $1 million, no smart investor is going to give you the $1 million. They're going to piece it out to you as you hit milestones. So there's a lot of fallacy out there, and I know it's sexy though, right? Even the unicorn thing, we argue about unicorns all the time. Their valuation's $1 billion. Doesn't mean they're making any money.
And they probably never will.
There's a long
to that
history.
level, to that
Right.
level, to that level. It's the greater fool theory of investing, right? I don't need your company to ever hit those projections. I just need to be able to resell your company to the greater fool who thinks they will at a higher multiple than what I paid for it. And that's the opposite of fundamental investing. It's the opposite of fundamental valuation. And it's I think flawed, but it is a lot of what goes on. But the question is, for you as a business owner, is your goal to just be sold to another company, or is your goal to actually get your product to market and make it? And we talked early on with my own journey, which is the best way to raise money is to get to revenue. Even if it isn't for your main product, if you can get to revenue with another service or another product to fund your other product, that's still getting to revenue. And a great example of this is something that it's all over Netflix, but and you can debate the ethics behind it, but Joule, Joule was a monster product for a while. They took on venture capital money. VCs wanted their money back. The way they got to their final Joule product was they made a completely separate product. And that first product was what gave them the funding to get to Joule. It was another smoking device, and I forget what it was called, but it was that first product, that alpha product, that first mover, that got them the funding to be able to actually do Joule the way they wanted to do it. So again, I think the quickest way to raise money is to get to revenue, get $1 from something, and build that team out. So
yeah, and the media is about hype, right? And they always talk about how much money they've raised. They rarely follow those to failure. So you hear about the raises, do some research, see all the people that had a lot of media about all the money they raised, and see where those companies ended up. Because a lot of them are not sustainable. They're not even operational anymore. So I think as a founder, there's also a realism that has to come into conversations. And if you have people just around the table or around you just hyping you up, get some other people. I mean, part of what we do here is not just shoot everybody's idea down. It's to kind of figure out the right answer for all of us. And that's the difference between what we do here and what some other programs do, because our money's on the line every day, right? We can't just partner with everybody and make this magical money appear.
Yeah, and that's part of your team too. So your team, I mean, we were talking about this previously, in another time, but part of your team isn't just the people that you work with day in and day out. It's your board of advisors. It's your extended network. It's the people that you go to with questions and problems to help get you to the next level. Being surrounded by the right people is worth its weight in gold. And those people shouldn't be yes men and women. Those people should be the ones that push back and ask you the hardest questions. Because if you surround yourself with people that go, oh my God, it's great, I love it, that's not accurate assessment of the market and what you're going to be up against. It's important to be passionate. It's important to be excited. It's important to move forward together. But, organizational behavior 101, conflict is good. It's good to have differing opinions and people push back on you and move forward from there. So my 2 cents is build that team out, push fundraising off. And the further along you get, listen, some companies need to raise money. The scale is such that they cannot do it bootstrapped and self-funded. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are one of those companies, but the further you can make it without raising money and the further in development you can get, the more valuable your company is and the more negotiating power you have when you get there.
Yeah, I'm frequently shocked at the amount of people we meet that have raised money and cannot explain to us what their business is or what their technology does. And that's always shocking to me because that's not the world we live in. That's not our realism. But, the hard part is all the time is you have to be willing to be disproved. We live in a world where we try to get everything with our bias and opinion to prove what we're saying. Be open to being disproved and being able to take a stand. That's the other thing. Part of this is if you're an owner and you're constantly just agreeing to everybody who's ever across the table from you, get a backbone. You have to take a stand. It doesn't have to be right, but you have to back up the stance. And I think that's what we look for in our interviews. We know you're not going to be right. We're not always right. But you've taken a stand and we can figure out how you analyze information. Because that's going to be a practice skill that you're going to have to learn in business. You get a lot of different opinions every day. Like we sit here and make jokes about it at this point because it's been years of us doing this. But you have to understand how to take in intel that's diametrically opposed and make sense out of it for your business. And some of it you have to throw away. You might throw away this podcast. Say, those 2 jackasses don't know anything about fundraising.
But that one sure is handsome. But go ahead, continue.
Were those little thumbs pointing at you?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
But you do. You discern through the intel. You see what is a qualified and what isn't a qualified opinion for sure. But I'm with you. You gotta, if you are gonna raise money, if and when that time comes, and I'm saying this from a position that I never successfully raised money, and thank God I didn't. I had offers, I had opportunities, risk profiles didn't match up. It worked out. It was a blessing.
You're welcome.
100%. But you have to think about, for the resources at your disposal, what is the best use of resources, including your time and the people around you. And taking stock of that and being open and honest with yourself will get you further than taking $1 from an investment group or from an investor ever will.
And I'll just wrap this episode up with one thing. We've raised a lot of money. Our companies have raised a lot of money. We raised a lot of money for clients. We didn't always raise smart money. We took bad money at times. And a lot of the lessons you're hearing from us and that we live every day in the incubator is from all those lessons we learned over all these years. There's nothing wrong with fundraising. You have to think about it a little more critically. And it's not about the money you raise. It's about the team that you put around it with the money. And we'll just leave it there.
Yeah, that's
How's
a good
that?
place. Yeah, we'll pick it up next time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, watching, and subscribing to No Followers Podcast. We'll see you next week.